Okay, so let's start mixing our dry ingredients. So we're going to take our flour. Now it's 500 grams of plain flour, and we're going to sieve it into our big mixing bowl. So sieving it is going to remove any of the lumps. It's also going to create a nice even and light dough as it rises. So make sure you don't make sure you don't skip this step. Tap on the side of the colander or the sieve and make sure that you're getting a nice fine powder of flour as it comes on out. See how easy that was. There you go. So once we've done our flour, we then need to add in our yeast. So I've got my dried yeast here. Now if you don't have packets like this, you can use tablespoon. Oh sorry, teaspoon. Yeah, teaspoon. I'm going to add my sachets. It's either 2 sachets of dried yeast or 2 teaspoons. Good, into there it goes. Lovely. Next we're going to add in our cinnamon. So we're going to take our ground cinnamon and we're going to add 1 teaspoon, so a small spoon rather than a tablespoon, a large one. Keep it nice and small. We're going to add 1 small teaspoon of cinnamon. Lovely. Moving on, we now need our ground nutmeg. Now nutmeg is quite a strong, intense flavour, so we're not going to add a full teaspoon. We're looking at more of a quarter. So a nice quarter of a teaspoon of your ground nutmeg, and then the same with your ground allspice. Oh, I have the lid still on this one. So just a quarter. Remember, it's quite a strong flavour, so you don't want to overdo it. They need to be nice and lightly spiced. Then we're going to add a teaspoon of salt. So mine, I ground up. I'm going to add a teaspoon of salt. And that will balance out the sweetness of the glaze that we put on top. All done. Good. So let's give that a little quick mix using a nice spoon here. Combine them all together, and then we're going to move on to the wet ingredients. There we have so far. It smells nice. Smells like Easter. Good, so let's leave that to one side. We'll come back to that in a moment. Let's move towards the oven and the cooker, and we'll do our wet ingredients now. Okay, so I'm at the stove. I'm going to be using the stovetop, which has a flame. I'm using a gas stovetop, which means that you might need an adult to do this bit for you. So on a nice low heat, make it nice and low, we're going to pour in our milk. So we're using 300 millilitres of milk. It can be alternative, you could use oat milk if you'd like, soya, whatever you need. You're going to pour your milk into a small saucepan on a low heat setting, and we're going to slowly heat the milk on up. I'm going to use a nice wooden spoon here, and don't let the heat of the get too high. Don't burn the milk. So if you heat the milk up too quickly, trying to rush this bit, you're going to burn all of the fat that's in the milk to the bottom of your pan, and then you won't be able to get that taste out of the milk again, and you'll have to start again with this stage, okay? So nice and gentle, just a nice light heat. And then we're going to add in our sugar and our butter and melt that together. So we've started to heat our milk up now. I can see some nice little steam coming from the milk, which means it's getting fairly warm. And into that you're going to add your butter. So we're taking 60 grams of butter. It can be any butter you like. It doesn't have to be dairy. It could be dairy free. And we're going to melt this butter into this nice warm milk. And we're going to do it nice and slowly, remembering again that we don't want to burn the butter onto the bottom of the pan. So go slowly on a slow heat. Otherwise, if you rush it, you're going to ruin and you're going to have to start the stage again, okay? So we're melting the butter into the milk, nice and gently, and it's starting to make this nice sunshine yellow daffodil colour, which also reminds me of Easter. That's my mum's favourite, one of my mum's favourite flowers. She loves daffodils. So if you know Anne from the HD, that's my mum. So we're going to melt the butter into the milk. Okay, so once we've melted our milk and our butter mixed together, there's no more lumps of butter in here, and I've been doing it very slowly, continuously watching and stirring it so it doesn't burn. And now I'm going to add some sugar. So I've got 90 grams of sugar here, and I'm going to add that into my milk and butter mix. And then I want to melt the sugar into that, just stirring it gently, keeping it on that low heat, trying not to put my fingers too close to the pan because the pan will be quite hot now. And I'm gently stirring so that all the sugar dissolves into the mix. And then once it's dissolved, we're going to go back to our flour mix and add these two mixes together. Okay, so I've mixed the sugar, the butter, the milk, melted them all together, and I've got this nice glossy liquid. I'm going to turn off the heat. I'm going to remove the pan off the heat, and I'm going to go back to my flour mix and add these two together. Okay, so being very careful because this mix is still quite warm, I'm going to slowly add this to my flour. I'm going to add half. That way I'm not going to splash myself with this warm mixture. And I'm gently going to stir it in. And then I'm going to add the other half. Keep mixing the dry ingredients into the wet. Taking the bits off the side as well so we're not missing any of those. Let's add the other half of this liquid mix. So be really gentle and slow as you mix it in because you don't want to splash yourself in the face. Good, let's place this hot pan, it's still quite hot, so be careful. Away. And let's slowly, very slowly, let's mix our ingredients together. Oh, it smells so good. It literally smells like Easter. You don't have to celebrate Easter to make these. These are quite delicious on their own anyway, so. My mum and dad love a hot cross bun, and my dad always wants a hot cross bun when it's not Easter, and he's like, where are the hot cross buns? It's like, Dad, they only come out around Easter, sorry. So, you're going to get to a stage where the dry ingredients have absorbed almost all of the liquid, and then you're going to add in your egg into the mix, and that's going to help make it into a dough. So at the moment it's quite flaky. You can see that there's not enough liquid in here to combine all the ingredients and get them to stick together into a dough. So we need the egg to bind it. You don't have to use egg if you are dairy free or vegan. You can use egg substitute, and you can buy that from Holland & Barrett's or from Whole Foods, Planet Organic. You probably can even buy it in Sainsbury's, although I have never bought it from Sainsbury's, so I don't know, but I presume that you probably can. I'm going to push this bit off of my spoon, and then I'm going to mix my egg in. So it's not that hot now because I've added it to cold dry ingredients, but it will be still be quite warm, so you want to be nice and careful when you put your hands in here. We are going to add in our egg. So that's 1 beaten egg into that mix. Looks rather interesting. Now you're going to put your hands in here so you make sure that they're nice and clean. If you haven't washed them, you take yourself to the sink and wash them before you put your hands in here. Now you're going to combine the ingredients using your hand, and you want to make sure you scoop the sides of the bowl to get any extra dry ingredients that might be stuck there off the sides. Fold it in towards the middle and do the same with the bottom of the bowl. So here I'm scraping the bottom of the bowl to get all those dry ingredients, and I'm going to try and start to work it into a dough, making sure that I've got everything combined well. Oh, it's a bit messy, it's flying everywhere. So do be careful. You don't want to make that much of a mess. And the more mix you have left in the bowl, the better. That means the more buns that you can make. So once it starts to come together into a dough like this, we're then going to have to start to take it onto a dry surface and knead it so that it becomes less sticky. So kneading is what I'm doing here. I'm pressing and rolling into it. I'm going to place some flour onto my countertop, and then we're going to knead it together. So it's all come together into the bowl. I need some flour now. So just sprinkle some plain flour onto your kitchen counter, making sure your counter is nice and clean before you do this. Like dusting flour, then take your dough out of your bowl, onto the surface. Now you're going to knead it. So you're going to use the healing palm to push in and pull back into the dough, and you want to start to activate the yeast. So the yeast is the sachet of powder that we added. That's actually a live form of bacteria, but it's good bacteria and it helps the bread to rise. So yeast, when it's dried, it means that they take the water content out of it and they dry it off and it becomes inactive. So in order to make it active again, you need to add moisture to it, and luckily this is a nice moist dough, and you also need to agitate it, and that's what you're doing here when you're kneading the dough, using your palm to push in and pull back. You can be a little bit firm with this, it's quite fun to do. Also really hard work out on your hands and your wrists, so it might be good for you to try with them. Make sure you knead the dough and start to feel like it's starting to get a little bit less sticky. Make sure you keep the surface well dusted, particularly as you are kneading and pulling back on it, exposing the inside of the dough. You want to keep it from sticking to the counter, okay? So I'm really kneading, and this will help it rise as well. We sit to proof, which is like the yeast to its thing. So it's starting to come together. I can feel the dough getting springy, and it's getting less and less sticky as it starts. So the dough's quite warm. We're going to keep it warm as well. Yeast likes warmth. So when we set the rest, we need to set it into a warm spot and cover it so that it keeps its heat as it starts. To rise. Again, keep the counter nice and floured like this so that you're not going to lose your dough. Okay, so once you've got halfway through kneading it, so I've been kneading it for about 8 minutes, you're going to start to work in your dried fruit, which is sultanas. So we're going to make a little divot in the middle and then work it in by continuously kneading it, and then you do it again, you make a little well in the middle, add your fruit. You can also add prunes into these if you like. You could do candied orange peel, but I couldn't get any of that at the moment. And traditionally it's raisins and sultanas, but I only had sultanas, so that's what I'm doing here, continuously kneading. And you want to knead this for a good like 10 to 12 minutes. I probably would go until it feels really elasticy, and then I know I've worked it properly. Again, make a little divot. Add some fruit, work it through. So next up, you're going to take a clean and dry bowl. Make sure it is clean and dry. There shouldn't be any moisture in it. Take some kitchen towel and we're going to oil the bowl so that the the dough, doesn't stick to the surface of the bowl. Oh, I made a mess. It's okay, I can clean up. So, making sure that you oil the bowl. And we keep the dough from sticking. A little bit more in there. So just coat the inside of the bowl. Then you're going to take your your dough, and you can see here mine has come together quite nicely. And I'm going to pop it into there and cover it with cling film to keep it warm. So don't take too long, don't let the bread or the dough, cool down. You want to make sure that this stays quite warm. So cover it up with cling film, or you could use muslin if you've got a nice muslin cloth. And if you're being more eco-friendly than me, Unfortunately, I don't have anything, and cling film is what I had, so that's what I would use. So zip, zip, zip. Make sure that we completely keep the warm air in, so we seal it up nice and tight all along the edges. Ta-da! And so now we're going to leave it to proof. So when you're leaving it to proof, remember you want to make sure that the yeast is starting to become active again and wake up. And so we need to leave it for an hour to rise, or until this dough doubles inside. So as you can see, at the moment, it's about as big as, say, my hand, and probably about that thick. And we want it to double. So I'm going to pop it into a warm space. This is going to be into my oven. I've not got the oven on, it's just slightly warm. I'm going to pop it in and let it proof, and then we'll come back. Okay, so it's doubled in size. Here it is now. We're going to take it out and pinch it down. On the tray, and they're quite close together. We're going to let these prove again for another up to an hour. We want them to double inside. So this recipe is double proving, which means double resting period. Again, place them in somewhere nice and warm. If you've got your plastic from earlier, which you used over your bowl, you can recycle that here, or you can place a tea towel or a muslin cloth over, depending on what you've got. I got the plastic from earlier, and that's what I'm going to place on top. Just so that they keep the heat in, they stay warm again. They're going to double in size, we hope. So let's just do that. We'll do the same here. Pop them into my warm oven again. Again, my oven's not on, it's just been warmed, and I've turned it off, so it's just keeping the heat inside. And we're going to put them back to rest. So whilst I've got them proving, and they're going to be in there for 40 more minutes, so I'm going to make the cross, the crosses for the top. And so in order to do that, I'm going to take 2 tablespoons of self-raising flour. We used plain flour before, and now we want to make these crosses puffy so they stand out on top, and we're going to use self-raising flour. So get a big spoon, a tablespoon, and put 2 tablespoons of flour into a little bowl. I'm using this yogurt pot as a way of recycling. There you go. And then you're going to put the same amount of warm water into 1 and 2, and you're going to mix it. Just mixing it. Now you want to make a sort of liquidy paste, so if you haven't got enough water in there, add a little bit more. Only add a little bit at a time. You don't want to add too much and then have something that's too runny and that's going to run off of your crosses, off of your buns when you try and draw your crosses. So I'm adding a little bit at a time. Two thick, if it looks like mashed potato. We kind of want it to look just thicker than custard. Almost like icing, you know when you have icing in a bag. So this is almost there. And make sure you get all the bits off the edges and the sides. We want it to be quite a smooth paste. A little tiny bit more. Remember, if you add too much, you're going to have to add more flour to get it to the right thickness and consistency in order to pipe your crosses onto your buns. So when it looks a bit like melted, or when it looks a bit like cream, that's about right, and that's what we want. So once you've got the right consistency, I'm going to add a touch, just a tiny touch more. I've got a bit stuck on the bottom. There you go. Once you've got the right consistency, you're then going to take a zippy bag like this one, and we're going to put it into there, and we're going to make our own piping bag. So that's about the right consistency when it looks a bit like cream. It's not runny where it's going to fall off the buns when we make our crosses, but it's definitely going to be thick enough to be able to pipe out the bag. So, in order to do this, you might want to grab another glass. I'm going to empty this one and use it. Pop your bag into your glass and put the sides over the edges of the glass. Scoop out your nice paste out of your bowl and put it into your bag. So if you are making double mixes of your buns, you wanted to make, I've got 16 there, but if you wanted to make 32 buns, you'd have to double this mix here to ensure you've got enough to make your crosses. Or you don't have to do crosses, you could do spell out Happy Easter on the buns, that would be nice. Or you don't even have to put Easter at all. If you're not celebrating Easter and you just want to make these, you could maybe put someone's name, you could do some love hearts, maybe some little bows, butterflies, whatever. So there you go, all in the glass. Now we're going to close the bag and make sure that all of our paste is in the bottom corner of the bag. And we're going to seal it up halfway and then squash all the air out of it before we seal it up all the way. And there you go. Now we're going to pop that to the side because when we need to pipe our crosses, we're going to cut the corner off with a pair of scissors, twist it, and we have our own piping bag to make the shapes on the top. So let's pop that to the side, we'll come back to that. Now this bit is optional, you don't have to do this one, but if you want to make a little glaze for the top, and this makes them quite sweet and sticky, you can make a glaze using 3 tablespoons of hot boiling water, and be careful because it's very hot. That's what I've got in my little plastic yogurt pot. You're going to use some brown sugar, so not white sugar like we used in the buns, or I used raw sugar which was a little bit of a different colour, but brown sugar. You're going to need 4 teaspoons of brown sugar, so a small spoon, and we're going to add them in. 1, 2, 3. Oh, that one was a little less than 4, so there's 4. So 4 teaspoons, a small spoon. And then you want 2 tablespoons of either treacle, if you have it, or golden syrup. And I have golden syrup. That's what I'm going to use. So 2 big spoons in there too. And so we're going to put this on after they've come out of the oven and we've baked them and they're all brown and warm and delicious. And this can be an optional extra, you don't have to add this. If you are not into adding any more sugar and you want to keep them as sweet as they are, they already have sugar in them and currants, then you may not need to add this glaze, but I'm doing this because I like it. So after you've done 2 large spoons of your golden syrup, you're going to add a little bit of cinnamon, and it's a 1/4 teaspoon, so a small spoon again. And remember we said a 1/4 just into there. And then we mix it. Now mix it slowly because it is hot, remember. Now this is going to be slightly runnier than our white crosses paste that we had made. And you can add a little bit more treacle if you want to make it a bit thicker. And so once you've mixed all the sugar and the cinnamon together and dissolved the sugar in the water too with the golden syrup, you leave that to the side, and then like I said, you can brush this on top of your buns when they're baked and they're brown and golden and out the oven. And that can be a little finishing touch. So I'm going to put a lid on this and keep it to the side. So our buns are out of the oven from proofing. They have risen to double their size and they're ready for their crosses. So while we do the crosses, you might want to start to heat your oven up. I've turned mine on already, and if you're using a gas oven, it's going to be gas mark 7, and if you're using a electric oven like mine, it's about 220. So put it on now so that you can warm up your oven. We're going to grab hold of our ready-made piping bag that we made with our white paste of flour and water, and we're going to make sure we squeeze all the contents to the corner of the bag and cut a little hole. Now it's going to start to ooze out quite quickly, so have something quite close at hand, and then start to pipe your crosses on your buns. And I'm going to go straight across like this, so I get nice even crosses, although the first line was very short. Hey, it's homemade, does it? You might even want to. There's 1, that's 2, that's 3, and the last one there. Almost like that. This is quite fun. You have to have steady hands to do it, so let's see how your crosses turn out. Like I said, if you've got good hands and done the crosses, you can set out how you style your buns. There's 1. I like my buns, I'm just going to leave out this line on this one. I am a perfectionist. Virgo, so that's usual. So I'm going to stick my hot cross buns now into my warm oven. I'm going to put them in for 10 to 12 minutes. I want to watch that they don't burn, but I want them to be golden and delicious. And then if you want to, once they're out the oven and hot, you can add in your lovely treacly glaze on top. So let's stick them into the oven now. So here's a batch fresh out of the oven. I'm going to put on my little glaze. It makes them nice and shiny and a little bit sticky and sweet. They look good. Now I'm going to go and serve them to someone and get them to taste them. So there you go. There's my hot cross bun recipe. So let me know if you try it. I hope you have a good weekend. I'll see you next week. Bye.